Today I am going to do a recap of what I learned in 2020. Yes, I know that I've already done a video for this, but I think it fits quite nicely into how I got into the things that I learned in 2021 about myself. So, as I mentioned before, the first thing I learned in 2020 was that I had been living for others my entire life. I had been living for other people's opinions, expectations, standards of what they thought and who they thought I should be. Um, this caused me to put a lot of pressure on myself, and it caused me to become a people pleaser even outside of my village. So, outside of my friends groups, outside of my family, I still was molded into this people pleaser across the board. Um, and this also caused me to like rush a lot of things. So a lot of things that I thought that I wanted, but really it was just the things that other people wanted for me. I tend to rush it based on one societal influences about like age and timelines and expectations. Like you have to have this by 25, you have to have this by 30, you have to be doing this by 21, whatever the case, whether it's from education to relationship, to finances, all those things and all those different factors. I rushed them, and all because I was really living off the opinions and the expectations of others, mainly my family, but just in general, those who knew me, whether it was a coworker, a classmate, acquaintances. Like I wanted to please all of them. I wanted to fit into whatever um, identity that they were placing on me that ultimately was really not my own. So throughout 2020, I learned a lot from that. I learned a lot from acknowledging, like, hey, I've been this way pretty much my whole life. I learned a lot about why and how I became this way, and really, I really took on um, how that affected my choices that I had previously made, and how I need to make sure it doesn't affect my choices that I'm currently making and will make in the future. So I did a lot of correcting, a lot of self discovery, a lot of like, okay, this is what you have. Great. You have these accomplishments from education to relationships to finances. That's great. Those, that was the pro of being a people pleaser. It was like, okay, you got all these accolades. That's great. But there's so many other things that you want that you I didn't exactly waste time, but I could have been working on the things that I actually wanted for myself and was much more fulfilling for myself rather than trying to live within this societal or like family or religious expectations of what I should be doing and what I should be accomplishing. So it took a while for me to want to accept like, hey, what you got out of this was still pretty great, so you can't be that angry or bitter or like disappointed in yourself or like the people who influence you. But you can also just learn from this and move forward. And so that's what I decided to do in 2020. I learned more about myself. I figured out my own personal values. Um, I had learned about personal values back in 2017 through a class, and I understood the concept, but it was still really hard for me to distinguish between what my personal values were compared to like my family values, compared to my religious values, compared to societal values. So I was a lot more intentional in 2020 of making sure I took time out to really tap into what my personal values are, and accepting that they may be different than some of my religious values, and they may be different than some of the family values that I grew up with, and it may be completely different than what the societal values are and what the value society wants us to uphold, right? So that took a lot of time. It took me all of 2020 to like really acknowledge like this is fine, but it's needed to be corrected, and applying your new personal values is ultimately the only way you're going to be happy and feel fulfilled within your life. So some of these personal values that I now hold and cherish, and I know that are my own, are community. Um, Being a part of a community, having a sense of feeling and belonging to a community is very important to me. So being able to identify with others, have others around me who are like-minded, feeling connected to other human beings, learning them, learning from them, growing with them. That's very important to me. Being able to have a role that I play within a community, um, to serve others and to um, really contribute to a working force. So, if I can support a group of people in some way, whether it be a church community or a community within my friend group or a community within work or school or whatever institution I'm a part of at that time, like I want to know that I play a role in contributing something positive, something helpful, something resourceful, and that really builds my confidence, and it also fulfills me in many ways. So that is a huge personal value for me, is community. Another personal value of mine is um, comfort. Comfort, I think, is my number one personal value. So the way that I came to this was that I was attending a disordered eating support group, and our therapist at the time was like, people keep using this term healthy, health, um, good foods, whatever. Like, what does that mean for you to be healthy? Like, how would you define health or healthy for yourself? And so we went through this activity, we journaled, we reflected, and then we came back as a group and discussed like what health means to us, and like what is healthy, how do we define healthy for ourselves personally. And for me, it ultimately came down to comfort. I want to feel comfortable in my body. I want to be able to move my body in ways that aren't discomforting. Like, I want to be flexible. I want to not be afraid to make a jump or bend a certain way or lift a certain thing and be afraid that I'm going to injure myself. Um, I want to feel comfortable after eating a meal. Like, I don't want to feel bloated. I don't want to have indigestion. I don't want to feel like acid reflux. Like, I want to be comfortable and after with the food I'm eating and after I eat. I want to be comfortable fitting to my clothes. I don't want to feel like they're too big or they're too small, or um, I can't really wear or rock the style that I want to rock because I don't feel comfortable and confident in it. So ultimately, comfort is a really huge personal value of mine in relation to my health. And I just spoke on a few ways it's related to my physical health, but literally across the board health. So, like, whether it's mental health, emotional health, spiritual health, relationship, like the healthy relationships, like, I want to be comfortable and confident and secure in all those aspects. So, comfort is one of my, I think, is my top favorite and most important um, personal value of mine. So that's the first thing I learned in 2020, was that I was living out others' belief of me and not my own belief of myself, not God's belief of who I was. So I really just tapped into that. I did a lot of praying. I fasted a few times. I did a lot of reflection, a lot of self discovery. Um, activities, which I included in all of my journals that I created and released last year. And those really helped me figure out what my personal values are and who I really want to live for and what I really want to live for. And that has changed my mindset and my actions so much, and it has contributed so much to my mental health and my physical health and my overall happiness. So, thank you for listening. Um, Thanks for taking the time to give this a chance and listen to my recap of the first thing I learned in 2020. There will be another video coming out after this one. And I'm going to continue to recap 2020, and then I'm going to get into 2022. I hope that this was helpful for you, because I know that a lot of us went through a lot of reflection and a lot of critical thinking during this downtime that we had um, during this pandemic. We spent a lot of time in isolation and quarantining. So I think that's what really gave me the opportunity to have this transition and this drive to really get back in tune with God and with myself, with my spirit. So take care. This is Vital Refinement, episode 1 of what I learned in 2020. I hope you remain safe and healthy, and tune in for the next video.